Hi, this is Merland Tony Baker, licensed mental health counselor, and you're watching the Jeffrey B, because he's a bad, bad boy. Valentine Show.
The Jeffrey B. Valentine Show. We get in the streets with the people. We showing God's love for his people. You know we break bread with the people. We all equal. Stay locked in.
Mental health conditions are more common than you may think. 1 in 5 youth or young adults lives with a mental health condition. Do you know the warning signs? Like feeling sad or withdrawn for more than 2 weeks. Severe mood swings that cause problems in relationships. Intense worries or fears that get in the way of daily activities. Sudden overwhelming fear for no reason. Or seriously trying to harm or kill oneself, or making plans to do so. Not eating, throwing up, or using laxatives to lose weight. Significant weight loss or weight gain. Severe, out-of-control risk-taking behavior that can cause harm to self or others. Repeated use of drugs or alcohol. Drastic changes in behavior, personality, or sleeping habits. Or extreme difficulty concentrating or staying still. If you see these signs in yourself or a friend, tell a trusted adult. The first step to getting help is to say it out loud.
If you're not happy with your Medicare Advantage plan, here's some excellent news. You have the freedom to switch to Care Plus right now. That's because Care Plus is once again rated 5 out of 5 stars for 2019 for quality and performance by Medicare. And that means you can sign up for Care Plus at any time. No waiting. With Care Plus, you get a 5-star plan that gives you more benefits than original Medicare, like prescription drug coverage, dental, vision, transportation, and an over-the-counter allowance. With 5 stars, you get a choice. So if you're looking for the assurance that comes with the highest rating from Medicare and almost 20 years of experience specializing in Medicare, look to the stars and get both. Pick up the phone and call Care Plus now. Discover all the advantages of a 5-star plan today. Just another plus from Care Plus.
You're listening to JVV Radio. Positive Radio.
Greetings, family, and thank you for watching the Jeffrey B. Valentine Show. Those who are listening by JBV Radio, it is Positive Radio. Also, those who are watching or listening to our podcast, we want to say thank you. We thank you for your prayers and your support. We thank you for the shout out. And you guys been with us for many years now. And I just want to say thank you. I believe that this subject that we are talking about, as we had mentioned last week, this mental health, excuse me, and a lot of times that when we hear the subject or the word mental, that we get a lot of misunderstanding what is mental health, or if anyone dealing with mental health, or if you hear or see someone committing a violent crime or domestic violence, or someone that's in the school system, and when they hear the word mental health, I think that there's a lot of misunderstanding, but what it is. So we have Sister Marlow back with us again.
Yes.
My brother, I call him the doctor, Tony Baker. You know, my friends for a long time.
Yes.
Welcome back, Sister Marlow. How
Thank
you doing?
I am doing wonderful today. It's a wonderful day, and I'm excited about the topic that God has laid on your heart, because it's definitely one that stays on mine as a former educator and just being an advocate to really bring and shed light on this whole topic of mental health / mental illness.
Yes. I know that ever since 2018, that and I would take the responsibility, because I've been saying you need to come on the show and talk about it for a while now.
Yes.
But we are here.
Absolutely.
And it's sad to say that the urgency dealing with mental health or getting the information or being educated is I think that we kind of took, or I kind of dragged my feet, or the media or the information, because sometimes the society want to avoid this topic.
Right.
You agree with that?
I agree with it from this perspective. When something devastating happens in our society, especially concerning a shooting or anything in which the person eventually is found to have some mental health issues, then the topic will come on radar, and it will stay for that period of time.
Yeah, and then
we
down.
lapse back into that, that valley of just thinking that everything is everything when it's not.
Right.
And so we need to keep a very watchful eye on this one, because it can come up at any given time.
I agree. Not only any time, but anywhere.
Anywhere, anytime.
Yes.
Morning, noon, or night.
Some places that we never thought that.
Absolutely. I mean, goodness, our schools.
What is the worst thing when we came up dealing with the, in school? Chewing gum?
Or doing very lighthearted, drugs or something like that. It was nothing like what we are experiencing now.
Right.
Our children have so much to contend with.
Oh, wow.
So much to contend with. The most that I had to contend with was, as you said, just little antics of being, bullying in school, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But now, even with that, and I'm sure we'll be discussing it further, but that bullying has been taken to such a level that it can, fall into the realms of mental health, because for some, they cannot deal with it.
Right.
The bullying and social media, all of this makes for a situation in which it can become very deadly very quickly. And I'm sure that Tony can speak even more on that than I.
The peer pressure from not only from social media,
Absolutely,
but from your siblings, family relationships,
right.
schools.
School.
It's just amazing. And right there, I'm going to bring in my brother. My brother, man, how you doing?
I'm doing good, Jeff. How are you?
Man, I'm doing outstanding, man. Thank you for coming on and sharing
to be here. Absolutely.
not only your information, your knowledge. I want to dive into about the disorder.
Okay.
What is the signs and stuff like that. But, man, before we jump into that, man, tell us about yourself for those who don't know yet.
Sure. My name is Merland Tony Baker, licensed mental health counselor. I'm licensed in Florida, Georgia, and West Virginia.
Yes, sir.
I've been in the field for over 25 years, and I have a private practice. I work with teens, adults, and couples, and some children as well. And it's just a blessing to be in the community to provide services. Growing up on the east side of Jacksonville and in Grand Park, I saw a lot of poverty issues, challenges, drugs, alcoholism runs in my family, things of that nature. So it's a blessing to be in a position as to where I can educate and help people to move forward and better their lives.
You are also a published author.
Yes. I thought you forgot about that.
No, sir. No, sir.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it real quickly.
Yeah. So I've written a couple books. My latest book is called Overwhelmed, Help for Single Moms Raising Boys to Men. And I've written a book a few years ago called Sagging Pants and Swagger Talk, Reaching the Bullies and Bear Girls of Hip Hop. And I've written a couple other things as well. My name is Merland Baker. They can go online and look at the book.
Oh, we make sure we have it on the screen.
Okay.
But you mentioned back in the day when you was coming up, Let's just share just a little bit some of the things, because I think that sometimes the Lord would take our struggle and turn into a ministry. He'll take our struggle and turn it into a blessing to help somebody that I remember when I was there and I didn't have nowhere to go.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your struggle back in the past, when you back in the hood, back in the neighborhood, the things that we were liking.
Sure.
Let's talk about it just briefly.
Sure. So, growing up in a single mother home without my father, it was a challenge of trying to identify male figures that I can look up to. But I want to just quickly correct myself, because I did have role models in my uncles. They were different type of role models. But as I matured, I recognized that these men represented different things to me at different stages of my life. So I did have some representation of a role model in certain areas. But I think Ann mentioned about childhood trauma.
Yes.
And I could remember myself growing up, and I was actually jumped by a gang. I was beat up really bad by a gang, and if it wasn't for a good friend of mine who knew some of the gang members, I don't know if I would be here today. So just starting and talking about the causation of mental illness, and one of them is childhood trauma. Jeff, they statistically say that 1 in 4 females have been sexually molested, and 1 in 6 males have been sexually molested. So there's a lot of situations going on like that really conduces, or that causes trauma, which leads to mental illness and things of that nature.
Wow. What about you, Sister Ann?
In growing up, I have to be honest, I was raised on a farm.
Okay.
8 kids on a farm. And put it like this, when you are on a farm and you have chores to do, it keeps you out of a lot of trouble.
Amen.
It keeps you out of a lot of trouble. Because
keep them busy.
You got a lot to keep you busy. But I will say this. I remember in growing up, that I did have this one particular relative that they had mental issues.
Mm-hmm.
And, there's an old adage that, especially back in the day, we would say, what goes on in this house stays in this house.
Yeah.
And so.
A lot of secrets.
Yes. And so certain things, if people would come over, that relative was taken to the back room. And I'm finding out later on, it wasn't because you were, ashamed of them or whatever. You didn't want to put them through extra exertion, from people that may not have understood.
Mm-hmm.
So as a child, for me, I'm just looking going, and I'm sure most of us did, we didn't understand mental illness and everything that came with it. So we just called them crazy.
Yes.
But
come on.
Ann mentioned about secrets, and I thought of something, is that secrets can make you sick or make you stronger.
That is the truth.
And so let me just elaborate quickly. So when you're telling your secrets to a therapist, licensed mental health therapist, in that realm, secrets can make you stronger, because you're releasing things that for a lot of people has been bottled up for a while. But when you keep secrets to yourself and you don't tell anyone, it makes you sicker, and you carry things like that around, which leads to trauma. You're triggered by different things, and it can cause a lot of challenges in relationship. Even parenting, it can cause a lot of problems.
And it will grow right along with them. As they age, that destruction will grow with them, and they can see in their behavior in relationships.
Absolutely.
You can see their behavior on the job or whatever. Or the smallest thing will just, I don't know if I should use this word, would tick them off or cause them to explode.
Yeah, no, that's very accurate. As a matter of fact, the National Institute of Mental Health says that 1 in 5 adults in America have some type of mental illness.
It's really?
Yeah, so that means that you mentioned about relationships.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a likelihood that you will probably date someone that has some type of mental health challenge. Now,
really?
As Ann mentioned before, people don't talk about that, and there are a lot of people that are undiagnosed. So that's something that I think that needs to be brought to the forefront as well. In terms of causation of mental illness, one of the things that does cause mental illness is genetics. And what people don't realize is that genetically, some people may be predisposed to mental illness. For an example, great-grandmother may have been schizophrenic. Ann mentioned about keeping that person in the house or keeping that person in the back room away from people. That person may have been dealing with schizophrenia, as to where you're seeing voices and hearing things. There's also textile hallucinations, as to where you touching things that's not there. There's gustatory hallucinations, as to where you think you're tasting things but you're not. And there's also auditory hallucinations, as to where you're hearing things that's not there. But there are a lot of people who are predisposed to mental illness. So as I was alluding to, the grandmother may have mental illness. She may have schizophrenia. The daughter may have bipolar disorder, undiagnosed. And then you as a person may be dealing with depression. And you may feel as though you're crazy. You may feel as though you're out of sorts.
So that's generic?
Well, that's one of the causations of mental illness is genetics.
Genetics, okay.
Yeah. So
it's not a learned behavior.
It's not. Now, mental illness is not a learned. Now, it's not a learned behavior.
Because I'm going to state it right there a little bit.
Sure.
So it's not a learned behavior.
No.
But,
no.
Okay, come on.
No. So genetics is when, now I mentioned about me being jumped by a gang. So
Yes.
that's environmental factors. Growing up in poverty can lead to mental health challenges as well. Childhood trauma can lead to mental health challenges as well. Unhealthy habits in terms of your lack of sleeping, eating, or not eating properly, that can lead to mental illness as well. Let me give you an example. They have a new research about the causation of mental illness called gut-brain axis. Axis is AXIS. And what gut-brain axis has to do with is scientists now believe that the gut and the brain send bidirectional signals to each other. Now, through a nerve called the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is the longest nerve in our body, and it connects every major organ. And so when that's out of sorts in the gut, they call that dysbiosis. That's why you hear a lot of commercials about probiotics and things of that nature and gut health. That's kind of what they're alluding to. People that struggle with irritable bowel syndrome, that's a type of gut-brain axis mental health situation.
Okay, wow. A lot of information. I'm here with Sister Ann Marlow and my brother Tony Baker, and we're talking about mental illness. When we come back from the break, I want you to name what are the major mental illness and what are their disorder. So we're going to probably go back into what you were just explaining. That's fine?
Sounds good to me, Jim.
All right, we got to take a break. We'll be right back.
From the moment you walk into our centers, you'll be treated with compassion and respect. Make yourself at home. Enjoy a light snack and drink while you wait. You'll be able to see your doctor shortly.
As you walk in the door, you are greeted with nothing but smiles. I see smiles, they put a smile on my face.
At Dedicated Senior Medical Center, you are part of our family. We show you our love by frequently checking on you to make sure you're okay. This may include a quick phone call to seeing you in the office or even a telehealth visit. We even welcome walk-in visits. We know your time is important, and that's why if you need blood work or even an x-ray, we can take care of that during your visit too.
You don't even have to have an appointment to see a doctor. If you're home and you're not feeling well, don't wait and have to run to an emergency room.
At Dedicated, we coordinate all aspects of your care. We make sure you have your referrals and all visits scheduled before you leave. This includes appointments with your doctor and specialists. If you need medications, we can take care of that too. We offer many of your daily prescriptions right on site, packaged up, and handed to you before you go.
I have the opportunity of getting my prescriptions filled right there. I don't have to go someplace and wait or come back the next day. I have a busy day, a busy schedule, so when I can just pick things up right where I am, I'm happy.
Our doctors care about you and want to know if you aren't feeling well. Just like family, we are always here for you, day or night. We are only a phone call away, and you can always reach us at our centers or even by calling your doctor's cell phone.
They give us their cell phone number, and it's not an imposition. They welcome it.
From all of us at Dedicated, we look forward to honoring you with the health care you deserve.
How do people around you talk about mental health? Do they use words like nutcase, maniac, or psycho? Do they only bring up mental health after something bad happens in the news? Do your friends, family, or coworkers treat you differently when they learn you have a mental health disability? If this sounds familiar, you're not alone. All these negative messages create powerful stigmas against the 20% of Americans who live with mental health disabilities. That's 1 in 5 people. But because of stigma, we rarely talk about how common it is to have a mental health disability. And if you start to believe these negative messages, you might be experiencing internalized depression, or what's known as self-stigma. Self-stigma can feel like a wall surrounding you. It may cause you to feel embarrassment or shame. It might become a barrier to forming authentic relationships, and it could lead you to lose out on getting the social support you need. You can combat self-stigma, but first remember that you are not alone. Remember that number from before? 1 out of 5 people have a mental health disability. There's a lot of us out here in all walks of life. Finding a community can help defeat self-stigma. You can start by having a candid conversation with friends to share how you're feeling. You may choose to connect with a peer-led group, or maybe find an online community. And there is a large and growing community of people with mental health disabilities organizing to fight back against stigma and negative attitudes in society as a whole. Speaking out, writing, advocating, different forms of activism can lead to change and help us find community.
You are listening to JBV Radio.
Positive.
Hey, I'm your boy, Pastor Jeff, and I would like to say thank you for tuning in. Welcome back. I want to, if you mind, so let me.
Sure, go right ahead.
Brother T.
Yeah.
What are the major mental illness when they're being diagnosed with that? Is there 4 major mental illness? What is it?
Well, the 2 major mental illnesses out there is anxiety and depression.
Okay.
And so within those 2, there are a lot of different areas. But I want to go quickly back, Jeff, to what you were talking about to debunk different stigmas about mental illness, because I think a lot of people don't understand the causation of it and how it happens. So I was mentioning before the break about gut-brain axis. That's one way that mental illness is called. Another area that causes mental illness is drugs and alcohol. And I don't know, I never really smoked marijuana. I didn't inhale. Now, I drank, did some drinking.
Yeah.
I did a whole lot of drinking. But
I didn't experience that, but I kind of.
But the stuff that, I've smelled, been around people who smoke, the stuff they're smoking now, I don't know what they're smoking now. It's just because they lace things with fentanyl. Yeah. They lace things with all different types of drugs. So drugs and alcohol can cause mental health challenges. Another thing that can cause mental health disorders is negative thinking. Negative thinking.
Oh, I can believe that.
According to one statistic, Jeff, 80% of our thoughts are negative. And we think 12 to 50,000 thoughts a day.
Yes.
So I think there's a scripture that says that we should think on those things that are good, just, lovely, and of a good report. We should think on those things. Mm-hmm. But oftentimes what goes in our mind is a lot of negativity. And if you aren't fighting those negative thoughts, that can cause some levels of anxiety and depression. Now, from a health perspective, Jeff, another thing that can mirror itself in terms of a mental health disorder is diabetes. Now, what I mean by that is this.
Diabetes, take your time. Take your time on that.
So because of the rapid changes in blood sugar, people who struggle with diabetes, they can go into fits of depression, anxiety. They can feel like out of sorts and deal with confusion and things of that nature. So again, it's very important that you go get your checkups from the doctor to make sure that from a health perspective that you're taken care of. Another thing that can mirror itself and look like a mental illness is vitamin D deficiency.
Really?
Vitamin D deficiency.
Are you serious?
Yes, because when you're deficient in vitamin D, you're slow, you're lethargic, you're sluggish, and you just feel like you don't want to do anything at all.
Wow.
So from a health, so those are 2 causes that can look like mental illness in terms of causation, but it could just be a health situation. And so those are some of the factors when we talk about the causation of mental illness that can really trigger that.
But the age doesn't matter, right? It doesn't.
The practice.
It doesn't matter old, young, or
No,
it don't have a
doesn't
respective of a person.
Right. So like, let's say, for instance, someone gets into a car accident, right? They survive, but now when the person drives, every time when the car is too close to them, they become nervous, anxious, and they even start shaking behind the wheel. That can be a causation of mental illness. We know about post-traumatic stress disorder,
Yes.
because these are men and women fighting in wars, and they come back. They used to call it shell shock back in the day, but they come back dealing with traumatic situations. That's a causation of mental illness. Now, in particular, when we talk about depression and anxiety, there's really no age restriction in terms of how things are dealt with. Because again, when you talk about childhood trauma, you're talking about a lot of situations. And I've talked to people who have carried things in their life for years, Jeff, in terms of childhood traumatic situations. Another area, Jeff, that we didn't touch on that was mentioned is relationships and lack of sexual intimacy. Relationships and lack of sexual intimacy. The New York Times did a study in 2018, and what they found was that I believe 15% of our marriages are sexless marriages.
Yes.
And for a lot of people, and that's not just men, although the majority are men, that can cause some level of depression as well. But now the flip side of that, fellas, let me say this. If your wife or spouse is overwhelmed, it's going to be very difficult for her to want to be intimate with you, and she has to do everything. So that's when the relationship.
Come on, Tony. I need you to look in there. Talk to him. Say that again. Talk to him. Talk to the fellas.
So fellas, if you are lacking sexual intimacy, one of the things that you may want to look at is the how equitable is the chores and responsibilities are in the household. If your wife is doing everything from cooking to cleaning to taking care of the kids to paying the bills, she has to call to get the tires changed, get the oil changed. She has to make sure the house is clean. If she's doing everything, she won't have time to be intimate with you, or she may not want to be intimate with you, because if you're sitting around playing the Xbox or playing the games, listening to music, or just kind of chilling while she's always on the clock, so to speak, even when she gets off work, that can cause relationship problems and challenges in terms of that area.
Okay, so can we back up just a little bit?
Back that thing up, right?
Let's back it up. Let's back it up. I want to talk about the warning signs. What are the early warning signs? I know that you touched on them. Some of the eating or sleeping too much is one of the early signs of mental health issues.
Yes, it is. I mean, because again, you're talking about not wanting to get out of bed. You're talking about not wanting to do things that you normally enjoy doing. Those are definitely warning signs of mental illness. Another thing too is if you start feeling numb, you start feeling anxious.
That's what I have down here.
There's a trigger. You feel anxious around certain situations and certain things that may come up. Now, triggers can work several different ways. Some triggers are internal, meaning that your heart rate may speed up, you may sweat, you may have some level of, I talked about heart rate palpitations, but also there may be some physical signs as well in terms of, trembling. You may start blanking very fast. I mentioned about sweating and things of that nature. So those are some of the signs that someone may be dealing with. Maybe not a mental illness per se, but that something's triggering a challenging situation and they're kind of reacting to it.
What about pulling away from people and not usually not doing any activities?
Avoidance is another thing as well. You have a lot of people who, when they dealt with a lot of traumatic situations, situations with people, avoidance is a good thing. And I'm glad you alluded to that, because another thing that I see in my private practice, Jeff, and this may amaze you, Ann, is church hurt. Church hurt.
Church hurt.
There's a lot of people.
Can I want to state it for a minute. Before you share, what is church hurt?
Now, there's a definition called church hurt, but the basic definition, what I read was, if someone hurt you at a particular church, they could be a leader, elder, deacon, or something like that, and you felt ostracized, you didn't feel welcome, or you just didn't feel like you was invited, so to speak, or you just felt bad about the situation. Someone may have spoken to you, or they may have misrepresented that ministry, and you say, you know what, I'm never going to that church again. And that experience may have happened at another church. A lot of people may experience church hurt. That can also come, Jeff, through favoritism. They may feel as though they're favoritism, and again, that may cause some people to experience what's called church hurt.
So by saying that would lead into some of the signs that you were speaking of.
Yeah, it could lead to some people may be depressed, some people may be anxious, some people, and unfortunately, some people may walk away from their relationship with God because of that.
Wow. Now you mentioned having low energy, feeling numb, like nothing matters.
Right, exactly. And again, depression demands that. That's
Wait a
why.
minute.
Go ahead.
It does?
Yeah, so whenever people are dealing with depression, depression, I liken that to like a person that wants to bully you around and smother you. Depression is a smothering disorder. And anyone who's dealt with depression, they know that oftentimes with depression, it causes you to want to be by yourself. You don't want to be around people. You want to stay in bed. You don't want to do anything. You just don't really want to function. One of the questions that I asked in one of my surveys is, have you ever wanted to go to sleep and not wake up? Now, for some people, they'll say, well, yes. And I'm saying, well, do you feel that way now? No. And then they'll explain the time period as to where they were dealing with a lot of depression. They were going through a situation. They felt as if they couldn't talk to anyone. And I mentioned about secret. That secret was making them sicker. And they got to a place as to where, look, I can't escape. You know, you alluded about to suicide. And one of the hallmarks of suicide is feeling trapped or feeling as if you can't escape. A young lady by the name of Arlena Miller, God bless her parents, and I pray for them. Very beautiful young lady. She was a Southern University cheerleader, 19 years old. She committed suicide by walking into the Mississippi River. But what was tragic was that she left a suicide letter. And I can literally teach you like a workshop on a suicide letter. But one of the things, Jeff, that she talked about, she said, check on your strong. She said, check on your strong. You mentioned about resiliency. That's a blessing, but it's also a curse, especially in the black community. Because oftentimes we're too resilient, and we feel as if we ask for help, Jeff, that makes us look weak. It makes us look as if God is not answering prayers.
Especially in leadership.
Not in leadership, yeah, but you're right, because I do talk to a lot of pastors and bishops as well. But the point is that there's no weakness in asking for help. As a matter of fact, I think you're weaker for not asking for help.
Yes.
Right? The strong are not strong by themselves. So therefore, if you're dealing with a challenging situation, I guess as Michael Jackson said, you're not alone. You're really not alone. There are professional people out there that can help them. And I'll say this and then I'll pass the mic to Ann or Giselle, because I don't want to be over talking.
Oh, no, go ahead. Go ahead. You're doing good.
So there may be people saying, well, you know, Merland, Tony Baker, you know, I want to get services. I got insurance, but how do I get services? Well, let me share that, because that's
okay, we're going to bring that up in the next segment.
Sound good.
Okay, so but I want to do a spiritual shift in this, Sister Marlow.
Yes.
What would you say when some people say, when that's a spirit of pride, or it's all about themselves, or look at me, you know, I'm rebellion, or I'm depressed, your woe is me, you see me, I'm going through, nobody paying attention to me. What would you say if someone had that thinking of that mentality? That could it be about pride, self pride?
And most of the time it is. I think really, if we all are honest, we all could kind of, you know, raise our hand on that one, especially when it comes to church. I have to piggyback off the whole church hurt thing, because I know many that have, experienced church hurt, and some of it is pride. I have to say myself, situation where I was going through something, and the wrong persons approached me at church. And what was my attitude? You go through a little depression, but you also then, that pride sets in and you say, I don't have to take this, and I'm just going to stage right. But at the end of the day, it's about your salvation. So what did I do? That prayer changes things.
It does.
Prayer changes, and
No doubt.
in this case right here, even mentally, prayer, I don't want to leave that out.
Right.
Especially when it comes to our relationship as far as being at church, that whole church hurt thing. You can get through it. I had to see a therapist, but at the end of the day, I did what I had to do because I knew enough of the red flags in my life that I wanted to make the right decisions.
Yes.
And even if you're depressed or whatever else, especially if you have children, you want to make the best decision for yourself that's going to also bless your entire family.
Yes.
But
Right.
that pride cometh before what? A heart of spirit.
Heart of spirit.
And a heart of spirit before
a downfall.
And that can play, especially in the church part. Thank you for everything that you said concerning it. But some of it is, at least I'm still here and I'm still where I'm supposed to be in ministry. But
keep going. I'm sorry.
You can, because I was getting ready to stage right. And it was so many other components coming at me. But some of it, all of it really, I blamed on the church when it really wasn't.
But we don't take the responsibility.
We don't want to take the responsibility. That's just a way for you to say that they hurt me or something they said, or I felt ostracized at this church. When in actuality, it was dealing with some of the components that he's talking about.
Tony, I want to come back to you and on this when we come back from the break. Sure. Even with the hurt, do we know that we in that place? Because sometimes we say, well, I just don't know. But as an individual feeling that way, do we know that we are in that place? Answer that when we come back. We got to take a break. We'll be right back.
What's your plan?
More time with the grandkids.
Staying healthy. Celebrating more happy birthdays.
Care Plus can help you make it happen. We've spent 20 years specializing in Medicare Advantage plans, and with our plans, you get benefits like an $80 reduction on your Medicare Part B premium every month with the Carefree plan, or a $0 copay for Tier 1 and 2 prescription drugs with the Care 1 Plus plan, plus a $10 copay for specialist office visits, and a $0 copay for routine dental coverage, including fillings and extractions, plus partial or complete dentures. All from the third largest Medicare HMO plan in Florida. The Medicare annual enrollment period ends December 7th. Call today. So, what's your plan? At Care Plus, we've got plans for you.
Hipline, can I ask you what crime you're calling to report?
I think my neighbor is dealing drugs on the corner. Ugh, this is a family neighborhood.
We understand. Let me get some information from you, and I'll assign you a completely anonymous ID number, and we'll see if your information qualifies you for a cash reward.
And you're sure he won't know it's me?
100% sure. He'll never know you called.
Gucci.
Hello, I am Marlow, CEO and founder of the African American Mental Health Initiative, lovingly called AMMHI, and you are watching the Jeffrey B. Valentine Show.
You know that feeling where your thoughts scare you or make life tough? Sometimes it feels like no one else in the world has those thoughts or feelings. No one seems to know how difficult it is to deal with your feelings. And it's not easy to share your deepest secrets. You might think something is wrong with you. Or you might worry what other people think. And all of that makes your thoughts and feelings worse. Our culture has created this environment of shame. Until the 1960s, society sent people away if they had challenges managing their thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. Over time, we learned that we didn't have to be afraid. We learned how to help people get better. We became hopeful. but there are remnants of those images in our culture today. Which is why some people still feel uncomfortable talking about it. The stigma has taken new forms too. With more access to more people all the time, it can seem like the world is telling us it's not okay to be anything but perfect. The truth is, everyone has thoughts or feelings that can be hard to deal with. So why do we make it so difficult on ourselves by judging others who could be going through the same challenges we are? What if, instead of seeing labels, we saw people who are struggling and could be there for them so they didn't feel so alone? What if we looked past our fear of mental health and started to talk about it in a constructive way? What if, as a society, we used empowering words and healthy images to help people feel supported? Maybe then more of us could feel comfortable telling others when we're having a hard time. Maybe more people would get the help they need. And maybe one day we won't have to talk separately about mental health and physical health, but just health. The truth is, each of us has the power to change our culture. Will you join us?
Thank you for listening to JBV Radio, Positive Radio. This is Chanel.
Hey, I'm your boy, Pastor Jeff, and I have the AMMHI crew in the house. Before we went on break, T, do someone know that they are in that position, or their state of mind, or their state of health, that they are dealing with mental health, or dealing with pride, or dealing with hurt, pain? Is it possible that I don't know, or do I know? Help me out.
Right, and so again, we talk about the signs and symptoms of mental health challenges in terms of depression, and actually one of the causations of mental illness is stressful events. And to someone that may feel rejected, whether it be from the church or an individual, that can be a stressful event for them. So there are a lot of different factors that play into that. And I think a lot of it, Jeff, too, has to do with how people were raised as well. Some people were raised with the attitude that, look, just get over it. Don't say anything, just get over it. Right. And then you have some people to the extreme as to where they're very emotional and just about anything makes them cry.
Where are some the way to maintain positive mental health?
Right, and so let me talk about a few factors here. So number one, if you're trying to overcome mental illness, particularly depression and anxiety, because those are the two major things. Number one, Jeff, I would tell them to go get a checkup. Go see your primary care physician to rule out any physical manifestations that may be the causation of mental illness. That's the first thing. The second thing, and I'm going to talk about some practical levels, because there are things like electromagnetic convulsions. There are things like things that you hook up to yourself that I know our community is not going to do. Put something up to the head like a robot and like Frankenstein. I know we are going to go through electromagnetic shock and shock treatment, vagus nerve stimulation. Those are all components. But from a practical stand, number two is create a playlist. Create some type of playlist. Now I know on my playlist, Jeff, I have songs like Yolanda Adams, The Battle Is Not Yours. Mm-hmm. I have stuff like Fred Hammond's Jesus Be a Fence All Around Me. I have, and when I really get down, like when I really get rough, I go to Jesus Can't Work It Out.
Yes, sir.
That's my pick-me-up, son. That always does something for me. Number two. Number three is you have to fight against negative thinking. And one of the ways you do that, Jeff, is by asking yourself, look, is this true about what I'm thinking? Is this fact, or is it just my feelings? Mm-hmm. And a lot of times when you challenge negative thinking that way, those thoughts kind of dissipate. Now, again, we can't get rid of negative thoughts because they're like weeds that grow in a crack of cement. I mean, they're going to come, but that's one of the ways that we can combat them. Another thing that we can do to manage mental illness from a practical perspective is take what I call show baths, and I'll explain that. Show baths. they say statistically that taking baths helps to improve emotional and mental health.
Really?
But most people don't take baths, they take showers. But I do what's called a show bath.
Okay.
Now let me explain.
Show bath, yes, please.
Now you will not, can I talk to the
Yeah,
camera?
talk to him.
You won't see that on Google. You can't look that up in the dictionary. That's a bakerism. I made that up, all right? And it may be in a
Bakerism, I
book
like
somewhere,
that.
so just don't use it. Let me get it out first. But when I say show bath, what I do, Jeff, is I'll run a hot bath first, right? Once my bath water's ran, I take a shower. But I use the shower as symbolism to rub off all the negativity of the day.
What I like to call get the dirt off the day, get
to
the
rub
day
off
off
the
of
depression,
me.
to rub off the anxiety, to
Yes.
rub off anything that may have stuck to me. I'm gonna rub that off, right? And then once I take a shower, rinse myself off, I get into the bathtub and I just relax. So I use the bathtub as a form of relaxation.
Candles.
I do candles,
All that.
music, jazz music, whatever.
Yes,
Thelonious
whatever it
Monk,
takes,
you
yes.
know, John Coltrane, whatever you.
But
you
what
know.
you talking about, too? What you talking about over there?
You know, look, Grover Washington Jr. thinks
Yes,
so.
sir.
So,
Yes, sir.
But and I use the bath as a way to relax, as a way I'm not working. Because a lot of times we're always working, so I use the shower as symbolism of working things off. But when I get in the bathtub, I'm just strictly relaxing. And when the bath water gets cold, if I'm still going through something, I'll run the warm another bath and just start all over again. So that's number 4. Number 5, you know, I was alluding to the fact that if your mental health issues persist, or these internal situations persist, and you've been dealing with something, let's say anywhere from 2 weeks to 6 months, it's time to see a therapist. You have to go see a professional. Now, I definitely pray. I'm a Christian. I gave my life to the Lord October 27, 1996. So I love the Lord. Christ is my all, and I definitely believe in prayer. I go to church. Sermons are uplifting. You know, you know, touch your neighbor. You know, I mean, I'm for that. I'm cool. I'm with that. That's wonderful. But a sermon is not going to keep your mental health on a consistent basis. A sermon can save you, but mental health can help to free you, along with prayer and along with the scriptures and along with going to church. All that needs to be in combination with each other. Because of the times that we're in now, there's never been a generation as to where someone can breathe on you and you can die.
Yeah, true that.
There's never been a generation as to where I don't have to leave my room. I have a lot of parents who bring their children to counseling because they say he doesn't leave his room. Well, guess what? With these phones, you really don't have to. Because everything, who would have ever thought that everything that you would need in terms of entertainment, value, information is in one spot? And there are a lot of people that basically, a lot of young people in general, remain in the room. And I want to pivot very quickly. There's a definition of a term called social media depression.
Yes, yeah.
Social media depression. And in concert, that deals with the lack of like interaction on social media. And so there are a lot of people, when they post things, they don't get the likes or whatever or comments that they desire. They can go into a social media depression. So the last thing I would say, Jeff, is people definitely need to get to a therapist. I want to quickly talk about how to get a therapist because I want to educate the people on this.
Okay, hold that thought. I want to bring Sister Marlow in. Just listening to Tony, I think that our parents also could be ashamed to go seek help for the kids. Do you agree? Have you experienced that with your organization?
Well,
they see the signs, but they're afraid to get their child some help because they don't want to embarrass their name. I have heard that before.
Well, I will tell you this, and it's 2 parts to this, because I've been a Sunday school teacher, also a teacher, educator. It is, and as a parent myself, when it comes to, wanting to get your child help, first of all, you have to be able, as a parent, to get over the fact that my child needs help. Some parents become very combative about that. There's nothing wrong with them. Mental health don't run in our family and whatever else. And I am not an expert, but I'm a parent. And I'm, as a Sunday school teacher or as a regular teacher, I see what I see. So it's trying to be able to get them to understand it's about the child. And I'm not saying your child is crazy or whatever else. As a loving parent myself, recognize that there is something, first of all, and let the pride down and the hurt of the fact that my sweetie, you know what? My baby is fine. Once you do, you will begin to see. I've seen situations where young ladies would tell me that, they cried all night long. And you can definitely tell that they are going through something, depression. Mm-hmm. So in mentioning it on one situation, when I mentioned it to the parent was very combative.
Yeah,
I know my child better than right.
Yeah,
I know my child better than you, and I lovingly had to let it be known. Just certain little things that they've said, and they were like, I'm going to ask them because I just don't believe that. But in so doing it, they were shocked because they just couldn't see. So if we as parents would step back, sometimes God can use someone on the outside, especially the therapist, but even someone who, may be closer to your child because they're around them, 4 or 5 hours a day or whatever. But be able to work together, because that's what it is. It's all about the child.
Yes.
It's all about getting them the help that they need. And then to switch it just a little bit, based on something that Tony said, I myself, as I said, alluded earlier, was going through depression. And someone on my team, came up to me because, we would have these village talks. Mm-hmm. And we were so busy, making sure everybody got all the help they needed and the therapist, and that's how I met Tony. And one of the persons on my team came up to me and gave me a therapist card. And I was like, okay, you can put that in, Rolodex. And they were like, no, this is for you. And I'm looking at them and I'm like, I could feel the pride in me, just like a lot of us do. I could feel the pride and I'm like, I'm good. Mm-hmm. I'm good. I was sitting in here, I heard what they said, and the person was like, but you need to call. You don't see, but you do. And the reason why is because I went through a close relative who had passed away. And I was just telling everybody with my $1 million smile, I'm good. I'm good. God has delivered. And yet on the inside, I something was saying, go. I went to that therapist, and I would tell Tony and him, I was looking for that sofa. And I'm like, I just know I'm not giving a lemon. I'm not going to, that's what we think about the therapist, that sofa and everything else. And sure enough, a sofa was there. But as I sat down and she just began to chat with me. And in chatting, it was just certain questions, because I'd already made up in my mind, I'm going to go this one time just to appease the person who gave me the card. I'm the CEO, and yet I won't even go. But in going that first time, that first question that was asked of me, I found myself, tears just started rolling down my face, and I'm like, I had already told her, I'm going to come this time, and after that, I'm going to be good. But I tell you what, that hour or whatever went by so fast, and she didn't even have to wait to ask me. I just told her, I said, go ahead and book me for another, and another. And during the course of that, I tell you what, yeah, people are perishing for the lack of knowledge. And sometimes the knowledge that you need is that you need to be able to talk to somebody. Yes. And so God has gifted them. He's gifted them and educated them, Dr. Luke. He's educated them. And we need to know that if we're not educated in that field, just like I wouldn't try to tell you because you're a minister or pastor. So the gist of it is I'm a better person for it. Certain things I didn't even want to talk about, and I tried to avoid it. She would just come a different way with the same question. And it made me very uncomfortable because I'm used to being in control, and I just really wanted, and she could tell this too, but she would just still direct it in such a way. But at the end of the day, yes, if you feel you need therapy, definitely go to it. I know I went all the way around the world, but
no, you're fine.
This
you're
part
fine.
right here, that's what we advocates do.
Right.
We learn through finding out the information and then passing it on.
Right. Tony, we are living in a society that we don't want to get involved. We can see that somebody need help, but we would not approach them to help them to seek help. In this society, I just want to stay clean. But when we see that individual act out, then we got something to say. It's too late then, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, it's never too late to get help, but certainly you
But
want to
I'm just saying, once you see them manifest.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, you could help to avoid that if
Right.
I would have said something.
Exactly.
You agree with that?
I definitely agree with that. Definitely do.
All right, so if we want to seek some information or how to get help, I know I cut you off a few times.
fine.
Come on, help us out.
No, so I was
Talk
just
to
going to say quickly, if you're trying to get a therapist, you can go to your insurance company and ask for your EAP benefits. EAP is an acronym for Employee Assistance Program Benefits. So when you pay into healthcare, you have that benefit. Now you can ask your insurance company to find you whatever type of therapist that you're looking for. If you're looking for African American therapist who's a Christian, you can ask for that. Another thing that you can do, if you find a therapist that's not a network, you can ask your insurance company for what's called a single case agreement. A single case agreement. And what that is your insurance company will partner with that therapist that you desire to help you get the treatment that you need.
Really?
Yeah.
That's part of the benefits?
That's part of the benefits that you pay into.
Really?
Yeah, you can get, in some insurance companies, you get 3 sessions. I've heard of some that give 18 sessions at no cost.
Really? Can you refer, or can it be referred to you or anybody else?
Yeah, anything. They can go on the website called Psychology Today.
Come on, Tom, come on.
You can go on the website called Psychology Today, put in your zip code, and a list of therapists will pop up. You can filter that out into whatever type of therapist you look for, whatever insurance you have, and then you can choose your therapist from there. If you find a therapist that you like, but they're not in your network, as I said, you can ask for a single case agreement, or you can contact that therapist, and they may have a sliding fee scale for you. The average cost of mental health in Florida, in terms of price, is $95 per session.
If you need to come out of your pocket.
Right, if you need to come out of pocket or out of network cost.
Mm-hmm.
But you can talk to a therapist, and they may offer you what's called a sliding fee scale.
Okay, within this minute, Sister Marlow, encourage them, do not be afraid. If you know someone need help, if you need help, go and seek help. Come on, help them out real quick.
And I will. I agree with what Pastor Jeff just said, because I myself was one that, again, someone encouraged me. And if you love them enough, be able to just simply tell them, here's the help. And in some cases, you may want to go with them. That first visit, just to be in the other room, whatever it takes, just be there. I promise you, I am a living witness myself that I'm a better person because of it, because someone cared enough about me to look me in my face and say, I'm seeing something. You need yourself to go and get help. And I did. So do that and do it today.
Man, I really appreciate it. I'm here with AMMHI. Thank you for the education, information, giving the information to go seek professional help. I'm your boy, Pastor Jeff. And listen, if you do not have a relationship with our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, only thing you have to do is not by work, it's by faith through grace. Just repent and ask the Lord to come into your heart and save your soul, and pray and ask Him to send you to a Holy Ghost-filled, sound doctrine ministry, and He'll do just that. Remember, love is in love until you give it away. I'm your boy, Pastor Jeff. I love you to the moon and back. There's nothing you can do about it. I see you next week. God bless. Focus on God.